certainly be a step ahead of what I was when I was your age looking for colleges. We didn't have this back then. We didn't have a pre-law program back there. I will tell you, I was researching because I knew I was talking to this group, and I was doing some research on generations, and you have been unfairly tagged with the term millennial. Now, one aspect I learned about millennials is that they have an intense interest in academics. I did not have that. I did not go through the machinations my children went through in college selection. Here was my analysis. I went to go to the University of Illinois because it's the cheapest school and the best school I can get into. My high school guidance counselor said, oh, you don't need 2 years of language to get into U of I. Well, you do. So I didn't get into U of I. Where'd I go? I went to Western. What was my thought process on Western? My best friend in high school is going to Western. If it's good enough for Dave, it's good enough for Dave. That was my entire thought process on going to Western. But you all who are in the pre-law program, you are going to be so far ahead of your peers who don't go to programs such as this. So you will be, by definition, better when you go into law school. I talked a little bit about millennials, and let me say this to you. Any stereotyping is by definition unfair. But since you've been painted with this brush, it is an incredible opportunity for you to prove that you don't fit in with the stereotype of a generation that is not willing to go the extra mile. I've had this experience, and the experience is people will from time to time ask me to write letters of recommendation to get jobs or clerkships. And if I think the person is a good fit for the job or clerkship, I will say that this person fits in with the definition of this essay. And the essay is a message from Garcia. I brought 12 copies for anybody who wants it. I will also give you a warning. It is dated. It was written in 1899. So it has dated language in it. But anytime I've attached the message to Garcia to any recommendation letter, the person has gotten the job or gotten the clerkship. And the message to Garcia is what employers look for the ideal employee. And let me read you a segment of it. You, the reader, put this matter to a test. You are sitting in your office, 6 clerks are within your call. Summon anyone and make this request. Please look in the encyclopedia and make a brief memorandum for me concerning the life of Correggio. Will the clerk quietly say, yes, sir, and go do the task? On your life, he will not. He will look at you out of a fishy eye and ask one or more of the following questions. Who was he? Which encyclopedia? Where is the encyclopedia? Was I hired for that? Don't you mean Bismarck? What's the matter with Charlie doing it? Is he dead? Is there any hurry? Shan't I bring a book to you and let you look it up yourself? What do you want to know for? Every time I've sent a message to Garcia, which talks about the person who takes the assignment and runs with it, the person has gotten the job. So you have an opportunity to separate yourself from the pack in this manner. In addition, I want to share with you my tip for getting jobs. And that is to take spell check off of your computer when you prepare your resume. A young man wanted a clerkship with a federal judge in Chicago. He was a very bright young man, summa cum laude at his undergrad, Ivy League education. This was his description of working at a pharmacy. Facilitated customer satisfaction and ensured patient retention through detailed explanation and complaint resolution while helping ensure that the pharmacy complied with state and federal regulations regarding the pharmacy operations. I said, no federal judge will hire you. You helped customers, period. And then the worst offense was, and I thought this was a great part of the resume, he worked for a construction company, which I thought was excellent. I needed to prove to the judge that this person just isn't an egghead, that they have some practical knowledge that they would bring to the job. Assistant carpenter served in a wide variety of roles. R-O-L-L-S. I called him up and I said, his name's not Ben, but I said, Ben, I received your resume. He said, yeah, what'd you think? I said, I have one question for you. He said, what's that? I said, did you bake those rolls yourself? Silence on the other hand. I said, if there is one document you are going to put out in your entire lifetime, other than perhaps your last will and testament, that has to be perfect, it is your resume. So take spell check off. And finally, my last two B's are bounce back, because almost by definition, you will have setbacks. You will have failures. You know, with regard to the millennial generation, you can't blame the generation. There has been no major genetic shift in the last 100 years. What you blame are the parents who have no longer keep scoring T-ball games. Everybody gets a participation ribbon so that we don't damage their egos. And I think it's really doing a disservice to the young people, because the real world keeps score. And when you're going into the area of law, I don't care what area you're in, we do keep score. I mean, I don't sit there and say, congratulations, Ms. Jones, you just got a $5 million verdict, and Mr. Smith, here's your participation ribbon. She got that. That is no satisfaction for the client. Let's say you go into an office practice where you're dealing with wills or real estate. You are going to be competing against other attorneys for clients. So it is a constant competition, whether you're in the courtroom or you're sitting in your law office. So in terms of bouncing back, I'll tell you my two most embarrassing international experiences. And the first one was at the United Nations War Crimes Tribunal in Arusha, Tanzania. The United Nations, in order to be truly United Nations on these prosecutions, usually have a British barrister, Australian barrister, a Canadian barrister, or an American trial attorney as lead counsel. But since it is the United Nations, they have attorneys from, for example, France, which is a civil law country, who are not well versed in direct and cross-examination, because the judge usually does a lot of it. So they need training in this area. So the first time I was working for the United Nations in Arusha, I'm sitting there, and there's a witness on the stand, and the translator boxes are behind them, glass, earphones on, and the attorney asks this question: what do you know about the killings in the village? And I cannot exaggerate how attenuated the answer was. It was something like, well, my second cousin said that her neighbor talked to a friend of hers who said that these three guys had something to do with it. And everybody's just sitting there like that. And I can't believe it. And I go, objection! And everybody jumps, and they look at me. I go, hearsay! And everybody jumps a little bit more. I go, sustained! And then I, in kind of a cocky manner, say, I always sustain my own objections. And the British QC who asked me to teach turned to me and said, we don't do that over here. And I said, what, object? She goes, no, object to hearsay. All hearsay comes in, and the judge just sorts it out, depending on how valuable it is. Well, I was able to get past that and have done some more work for them. But you've got to be able to bounce back, and I'll go to Japan. because Japan, as Brian talked about, moved to jury trials for the first time since World War II a few years ago. Their conviction rate with judge-only trials was 99.7%. So if you got arrested for something in Japan, you're pretty much cooked. And they wanted to get their citizens involved in the decision of guilt or innocence. And their system is called the Sabayin system. And it is a system of 9 jurors, 6 lay people, 3 judges. However, the judges are a bit different than the judges sitting around the tables here. Their judges, when they go to law school, they say, I'm going to be an attorney or I'm going to be a judge. So their judges are truly professional judges. They have actually not ever practiced law. And my concern is since the Japanese are a very group-oriented society, that if any one of the 3 judges said, I think the guy's guilty, the 6 lay people go, oh yeah, sure, he's guilty. Because they're group-oriented and they respect authority. And it was a majority vote. It was 5-4. It wasn't unanimous. They can't hang them like we can over here. So I said, how am I going to convey this to them? So I got a copy of 12 Angry Men in Japanese. And I did the scene where the jurors are sitting around and all 11 jurors want to convict this guy. And Henry Fonda's just sitting there staring down. And one of them says, well, what do you say? And Fonda goes, you know, I just kind of like to talk about this before we convict him. And the movie takes off, and Fonda is able to convince the other 11. So I shut it off, and I said, my concern is that there are no Henry Fondas in this country. It is my concern that you are so group-oriented in this country and have such a respect for authority that if any one of the 3 judges voices an opinion before any of the 6 lay people, you're just going to fall in line with the judge. So my suggestion is you've got to have a blind vote. So if somebody thinks they're not guilty, they know at least one person or maybe more might be siding with them. Well, at this point, they're all sitting there like this. There's 150 of them, judges and attorneys, and they're just glaring at me. And I'm thinking, oh, this is great. I have ticked off an entire legal system by engaging in talking about stereotypes. And then I said, and thank God I found this, I said, it's my understanding that one of your favorite sayings is the head of the nail which sticks up gets pounded down. And they all burst out laughing. It was like I was Jerry Seinfeld. They about did a wave on that. So you got to bounce back. Now I should have 4 B's, and the last one should be be brief, which is probably too late for that. But let me end with a single B, and that is, don't be cheap. Carol says the biggest insult that I can give a person is to call them cheap. And I want to talk about cheap in terms of 2 things, in terms of time and in terms of money. Especially in this day and age, one of the greatest gifts that you can give a person is time. One of the greatest gifts you can give them in terms of time is to listen to them, to actually understand what they're saying as opposed to be sitting there staring at them and listening to them thinking what you're going to say back to them. The other gift, and some of you who will go into law will become successful, and you will have money. And I will urge you, don't be cheap. The reason I say this is my experience with the ABA Legal Services attorneys. These people go out and they're doing God's work for pennies. And I tell them, you know, I'm going to go across to a bar, I'm going to set my credit card down, I'm going to buy the first round of drinks. And usually I'm with a bunch of attorneys from these big law firms who are making 10 times what I'm making. And I buy the first round of drinks, and then one of the attorneys goes, well, I'll get the second. And we were sitting there one time, and there were 2 legal services attorneys, and these 2 young ladies were saying, well, let's just split an entree. And one of the attorneys overheard, he goes, split an entree, heck, our firm will pick up the entire tab. And it just needs one person to break the ice. I believe that people are on a continuum of whether people collect objects or people collect experiences. And my wife will tell you, I'm at the far end of the continuum of collecting experiences. And the experience that I like to collect is dining and wine. And I will tell you, there have been sometimes I've collected the experience of dining and wine where I've had buyer's remorse. I've regretted that experience because I spent too much. But I have never regretted when I gave money for a good cause. So I will end with this story. There are many stories about attorneys, but this is one of my favorites. John D. Rockefeller was on his deathbed, and the media was surrounding the house. And the door opened, and his doctor, his minister, and his lawyer walked out. And they walked up they had microphones set up, and the doctor intoned, John D. Rockefeller died at 10:23 this morning. And the reporters started shouting questions. You know, what did he die from? Was he conscious? Did he have any last words? And, you know, the doctor was fielding this question, and all of a sudden a reporter shouted out, how much did he leave? And it kind of shocked the doctor, and he looked around, and the attorney stepped up, and he said, he left it all. He left it all. It has been a pleasure to circle back, be bold, be better, bounce back. Thank you for the award.
Thank you, Judge. Before we conclude today, I have just a couple of announcements, and then you'll have the opportunity, if you want to go back and sit in one of the judges' chairs or jury chair or visit with some of our students, we'll do that. But the first thing I'd like to share with you is one of our students recently got a very big honor. Yale Law School sponsors a program called the Women's Campaign School. It's a week-long leadership program every summer where they bring women from all over the world in to learn more about holding political office, whether it be to run a campaign or to run for office or to be an appointee for an office. Well, I've been sharing this opportunity with our students for a couple of years now. And so recently, one of our students applied to the program. 500 applicants this year, and only 80 were accepted. So I'd like to introduce Lauren Beeman, who is a junior pre-law student who has This will be a life-changing opportunity for Lauren. After QU, I know she's going to go on to law school. She tells me she's going to run for president one day. I believe her, and she'll probably be elected. So, congratulations. Our pre-law program at QU has over 100 students between pre-law, political science, history, criminal justice, and all of them are very engaged because of the great professors we have in the program. Many of them go on to law school, others go on and study law enforcement, or they go into forensics. Whatever their choice is, they get a solid foundation here, and we're very proud of our program. That's one of the reasons that we decided we wanted to take this space and make it the QU Center for Legal Studies. By naming this portion of our campus the QU Center for Legal Studies, our hope is that we can engage at a deeper level with not only our community and the lawyers and judges in our community, but also even better prepare our students, whether they choose to go on in the 3+3 program with St. Louis U, or they go on to another law school. They get a solid foundation here. Courses like our legal research and writing really prepare them and give them a leg up on their competitors once they go to law school. So through this center, We hope that we can raise $500,000 that will enhance our pre-law scholarship programs, our mock trial program. We also hope to start a QU Hall of Fame, a legal Hall of Fame, for those who have helped the program, who have graduated from the program, and have gone on to bigger things. So with that, this will be our Center for QU Legal Studies, and we hope that you will choose to be a part of it, either by working with our students or by making a financial contribution from you or your law firm. Over the next few months, we'll be reaching out and asking how you might be able to guide us or help us in those endeavors. At this time, I'd like to call all of our students up.
Mock trial demonstration.
Boot camp.
Here, I'll let you guys.
Opening statement,
Yes.
Mary.
These young ladies and gentlemen are really what it's all about, and preparing them to go on and be in your seats down the road. So they're here to answer your questions, to give you a tour of the facility, to share with you more about our classroom, our soon-to-be law library, our courtroom, or any other questions that you might have. So with that, thank you guys for being a part of our program. Thank you for being here today, and we look forward to an even stronger collaboration in the future. Thank you. I think you're okay. Bill, thanks for coming.
Very nice program.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.